Josh, the Super Bowl was kind of, I think, what we both predicted, anticlimactic. Not a lot of buzz, and it sort of felt like a fitting conclusion of the way this football season went, which was a dominant defensive performance.
Yeah. Um, Remember how last week I said the New England Patriots offensive line had done a good job keeping Drake May upright? The
Yeah, I have no idea where you came up with that analysis, but go on.
the Seattle Seahawks said, hold our beer. Because
Well, well, actually, the Los Angeles Chargers, Houston Texans, and the Denver Broncos did it before because Drake May was only hit the most out of any quarterback going into a Super Bowl ever in a postseason. But go on.
Will Campbell, who was drafted number 3 or number 4 overall, he looked like a turnstile at a amusement park. I mean, he was just letting Seahawks linebackers and defensive linemen just get to Drake May anytime they wanted. And Sam Darnold really didn't have to do much. Um, that defense absolutely dominated. And for a while, it looked like Jason Myers was going to win Super Bowl MVP because the only points we were getting was from him making field goals.
So, do you remember? You do this a lot to me. When you ask me, do you remember what I said on a previous show? Do you remember what I said I was watching early in the game?
If the Patriots offensive line would hold up.
Yes. So what did I do? The first New England series of the game, I am paying very close attention to Will Campbell and the other guy whose last name I can't pronounce, the left guard on the offensive line. And if you remember going into the game, I said, well, it's going to be a low scoring game. If the Patriots offensive line could protect, they could maybe find a way to score late. Josh, I watched the first passing play the Patriots had in the game, and I said, well, that's it. I'm wrong. This game's over. Seattle's going to blow them out because you could just tell from watching on the tape how much better Seattle's defensive line was than New England's offensive line. And I also thought Collinsworth made a great point very early on in the Seattle first offensive drive of the game when he was talking about look how aggressive the Patriots defensive backs are at jumping the routes of the Seahawks because they're trying to score on defense because they don't believe they can score much offensively. And I said it was going to be a low scoring game. We both said there's a very high possibility that the quarterbacks are not going to win the MVP, even though it really is mostly a quarterback award. It was really a game where Seattle won in the trenches. Their front four got to New England's front four. And I also think that for the Patriots, I thought that was one of the most conservative, disappointing, no life offensive game plans I have ever seen in the history of the Super Bowl. And I don't think Josh McDaniels is getting enough backlash from the NFL at large as to what the hell was that game plan. They ran the ball on every first down in the first half. They punted the ball on every drive in the first half. And really, they didn't let Drake May for the football down the field. It was like they were protecting Drake May because they did not protect him. And in my opinion, um that was one of the biggest mistakes of the game.
Yeah, I remember I said last week that this would be a high scoring game. And, well, I was proven dead wrong on that. Um, and I think the reason I had said that is because we saw what Seattle did in the divisional round against San Francisco. We saw what Seattle did against the Rams, which, if you remember, I was asking the question after that game. I said, was that the real Super Bowl? And you said, well, let's see who comes out of the AFC. Um, which now that we know what ended up happening, I have to say Rams Seahawks part 3 in the NFC Championship, that was the real Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I know we talked about this a little bit over text. I know it's the first thing I sent you as soon as the game ended. I tried this year to defend New England because teams like the 1999 Rams had the third easiest schedule in history and won a Super Bowl. But when you get blown out like that and you look like that you don't even belong on the football field, that is when the easy schedule comes into point. And to your point, listen, Sam Darnold was 19 of 38. He had 200 something yards. He did make some really good plays where there was a couple times where Milton Williams or Christian Barmore or one of the Patriots defenders had him in the backfield and he slipped out of a sack and either threw the ball away or got a completion for some yards. But I mean, Seattle was running the football on 3rd and 12 and consent to kicking field goals because they believe the Patriots cannot score on them.
Can we give Christian Gonzalez some credit, though? Because he played phenomenal in this game. He really did. Like, I know JSN left the game early with an injury, but still, Christian Gonzalez, basically for how long JSN was in there, JSN wasn't really a factor. And you got to give Christian Gonzalez credit.
Well, but what did I say, Josh, going into the game? If you look at Super Bowls historically, the number one wide receivers do not have big games in Super Bowls. I thought it was going to be a Cooper Kupp or a Raheem Shaheed type game. And by the way, JSN got hurt. He had a little bit of a concussion he had to get checked out for. And really, it didn't matter by that point because Seattle was just dominating the football. I mean, JSN was used in that game mostly as a decoy. Was Christian Gonzalez absolutely the best player on the field for the Patriots? Yes, I think if some by grace of miracle, they win the game here, I think Christian Gonzalez would have been the MVP of the game. So he's a great corner. He's going to get paid. He's probably going to get, top of the money market for a corner. I thought he played a great game. However, it didn't really matter in retrospect.
No, you're right. I felt like the Patriots offense left their defense out to dry because, yes, you're right. Seattle was effective at running the ball, but for the most part, the Patriots defense held their own. It's not like...
I mean, the Patriots offense in 6 out of their first 7 drives went 3 and out, and that's when you knew they're not going to win the game because, to your point, their defense, who had done a good job, held into 4 field goals initially, but when you're out on the field for that long, and not getting a break, eventually the defense is going to break.
Yeah, but again, it's not like Seattle ever hit this home run pass. Like, yes,
I mean, they had a couple opportunities. The one Darnold missed to JSN on the broken play early on would have been a walk-in touchdown. Gonzalez saved a touchdown twice against Shaheed. So at least Seattle, they did take opportunities down the field, which New England did not do. Again, I thought New England's offensive game plan was let's not lose the game. And to me, that's what ultimately let them lose the game.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of criticism about whether New England truly is one of the top contenders in the AFC because they got dominated by the Seahawks in the fashion they did and because of the schedule argument. But for them to go on the road, beat Denver, yes, the Broncos had a backup quarterback, but both teams had to play in the snowstorm. New England made the adjustments. Denver did not. They had to go against 2 of the elite, or 3 really, of the elite defenses in the AFC in the Chargers, Houston, and Denver. Although I will still say Seattle's was the toughest defensive unit that they faced. No disrespect to the other teams. But for New England to even get there, I mean, you can't discredit them entirely.
I mean, But from what we know now, you can't totally give them credit either. Let me just lay this out there. Out of the 17 games they played this year, 11 of those games, the coach got fired, and two more were against the Jets, and another one of those was against Joe Flacco and the Cincinnati Bengals, not Joe Burrow. And the other thing is, I think you can make the argument two things on two of the playoff games. Number one, if CJ Stroud, if the Texans just take a knee instead of turning the ball over 5 times, they might have beat New England in that divisional round game because, well, the Patriots offense was not doing that well. They scored mostly off turnovers in the first half. I give you Drake May played a better second half, threw that great ball to Keyshawn Booty to clinch the game, but that game was a lot closer than it should have been. And then I do think in my heart of hearts, and weather has a lot to do with it, I give you it. And Denver missed the fourth down. I understand that. But I do think A, if Bo Nix plays, and or B, if the game does not turn into a complete whiteout where you can't even see the field, even with Jared Stidham, I'm not sure New England's in this game.
Yeah, but again, both teams had to play in the total whiteout. And
okay, they did. New England made one adjustment. And by the way, people forget if what's his face, the special teamer, I'm forgetting his name, the kid that blocked the field goal. It's like a 45, 46-yard field goal off the foot of Watts. If that ball isn't blocked, I don't know if New England wins that game. Not moving the ball either.
Yeah. And if Sean Payton had actually called like a legitimate fourth down play instead of whatever that was, you're right. Denver very well could have won that game.
I guess my takeaway is I think there are about 8 teams in the AFC next year who I think legitimately are better than New England. I'm not even sure at this point New England's a playoff team next year.
No, it's interesting that you say that. Cam Newton on First Take the other day said the same thing. Like, so you think this was a fluke run for New England? You don't think they're here to stay?
Listen, I think over time they will get better, and I think in the next year or two they will get better. But I think there's two things going against them this year. Number one is the perennial Super Bowl loser hangover, which will always happen, and New England's going to have to deal with it. And the fact that they're now going to have to play a first place schedule and not a fourth place schedule to me is a big deal. And number two, the fact that Patrick Mahomes will be back and healthy. Joe Burrow will be back and healthy. Lamar Jackson will be back and healthy. Justin Herbert, I think now is a legitimate offensive coordinator in Mike McDaniel. I think the Tennessee Titans may be one of those teams that go from worst to first in the AFC South. I think the Texans defense is legitimate still here. I think the Jaguars, what they did this year, are legitimate. We'll see. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers comes back in Pittsburgh and Mike McCarthy, they're going to win somewhere between 8, 9, and 10 games. And Denver, listen, they're Bo Nix on a rookie contract. I think Sean Payton has a better feel for personnel, personally, at least on the offense side of the ball, than Mike Vrabel. So I just think that is a lot of competition to for sure say that they're going to get back to this spot. They very well could. But I will tell you one thing that I will guarantee you right here today. They're not winning 14 games again. At the most, could they win 10 or 11? Maybe. I'll have to see if the schedule really does shake out.
I don't think New England is going to fall off the face of the earth. I really don't.
No, I'm not saying that they're going to fall off the face of the earth, but the Lions went 9-8 and missed the playoffs this year. Could that be the case for New England? Sure, it could.
Here's the thing, though. There was only one vote separating Matt Stafford and Drake May in the MVP voting, if you remember. Mike Vrabel won Coach of the Year. He took a team that had a losing record the past 2 seasons. I think they were 4-13 both last season and the season prior, if if I recall that correctly.
Hey,
And
Josh, there was a two-time coach of the year in Cleveland who now is no longer employed. So what does that mean?
fair, he should not have been fired. Don't get me started on that. I'm
It's
still
it's just
pissed.
the point. By the way, most coaches of the years, you look historically, within the next 2-3 years, they're actually fired.
Yeah, Brian Dable is a perfect example of that.
Yep.
But let's, you asked this question: did Kenneth Walker deserve Super Bowl MVP? He was Seattle's offense. I mean, no, he didn't score an offensive touchdown, but he was the reason Seattle was able to move the ball offensively. I mean, really, you could have given it to one of the defensive players. Like, I get it, because the defense dominated. But, again, offensively, JSN wasn't really doing anything, as you said. Sam Darnold was good, not great.
I mean, he completed 50% of his passes. He couldn't win the MVP.
So, for me, it made sense that Kenneth Walker won Super Bowl MVP. You don't have to score a touchdown to be effective.
No, I completely agree with you. I think Kenneth Walker should have won MVP, and I think the only other argument you could have made for a player would be Devin Witherspoon, who got in a couple of sacks. He's the one that picked up on that scoop and score at the end of the game, which I guess they ruled an interception somehow. That I don't understand. I thought it was a fumble and a return. But he only blitzed, I think I saw like on 20 snaps going into the game, and then he ended up blitzing 8 or 9 times in the game itself. So Seattle, I thought, did a really good job at coming out with a different game plan defensively, and New England was not ready for it. And to your point, like Dexter Lawrence got a couple of sacks. I think Leonard Williams got a couple of sacks. Some other people got a sack here and there. It wasn't just one guy. You could have looked at the blueprint of Malcolm Smith in Super Bowl 48 when Seattle absolutely crushed Denver. But I think Kenneth Walker was the only one in the first half, especially moving the football for Seattle. The fact that he had over 100 yards in the first half shocked me, especially with those 2 defensive tackles for New England. I thought they would be able to stop the run. As you and I both said, that was going to be the key for both teams' defenses. And the ironic thing is with Kenneth Walker, he may have won Super Bowl MVP. There is no guarantee that this coming September he is in a Seahawks uniform.
I very much doubt Seattle's going to let him leave the building.
Well, to me, it depends on if they think Zach Charbonnet is healthy, they're not going to want to pay 2 running backs. So they either can franchise tag Walker, which I think is a possibility, but I do think there is a world if some team wants to pay him because they saw what he just did, he may walk.
You know what's interesting is over the offseason, Clint Kubiak was the name we kept hearing in terms of head coaching candidates for Seattle. I'm saying like he was the name on Seattle's staff that was being considered for head coaching opportunities. And yet we saw what Seattle's defense did on Sunday in the Super Bowl. And you never really heard Seattle's defensive coordinator being mentioned for head coaching opportunities.
Because it is exquisitely stated that is Mike McDonald's defense. He runs it. He's the play caller. Very similar to like a Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, etc.
Fair, but I still think it's interesting that when your defense is that effective, the defensive coordinator should get some consideration.
From what I've been told, he's being considered in Cleveland for the Browns defensive coordinator position.
Oh, don't get me started on that one. Good God.
But yeah, I mean, again, this was a weird Super Bowl. Walker becomes the first running back in the Super Bowl era since Terrell Davis in 1998 to win Super Bowl MVP. And it is sort of this ironic thing where last year with Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, sort of bringing back the importance of the running back position for now a running back to win MVP. You do wonder if, and Saquon Barkley accounted last year for only 1.9% of the Eagles' cap, which was the highest in over a decade. You do wonder now if teams are going to look and say, do we need to pay a running back? And again, I think a team out there like if the Raiders didn't have Ashton Genty, I could totally see them saying, okay, we could sign Kenneth Walker. Maybe like a Tampa Bay Buccaneers team or a team that feels like they need more of a running game. Maybe New Orleans, if they don't feel like Alvin Kamara's up to par anymore. Like, I think there is a place where Walker could get paid and be a starter somewhere else.
Yeah. Walker yes, he had the tough yards. Maybe the quietest MVP gather. I agree with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, the game was quiet. I mean, how many non-football fans did I talk to on Monday that basically said I watched the halftime show and went to bed?
And the commercials stunk.
Oh, I 100% agree with you on that. It was nothing but sports betting and AI commercials. It was a really, this Super Bowl going into it, and I said this. I think I had this sentiment more than you. It was a boring Super Bowl. There was no hype behind it. There was no enemy. Nobody cared who won. It didn't even feel like Super Bowl Sunday. It did not feel like the big game, though I did think NBC did a terrific job on it.
Yeah. Let's see. Question. What did Eagles fans and Browns fans learn from this Super Bowl?
Well, Grandizer, Eagles fans didn't need to learn anything because we've already been to the Super Bowl, 2 times in the last 3 years. Browns fans should learn that you need a whole team and you need a quarterback and you need a lot of help, and you're nowhere close to the Seahawks.
No, the Browns are not in a position to make the Super Bowl. I'm not going to be one of these delusional Browns fans that saw the Super Bowl 61 logo and said, oh, that looks like the shores of Lake Erie. No, I'm not going to do that.
All right, go ahead.
Huh? By the way, I want to talk about that because the Super Bowl 61 logo did come out, and there's a lot of orange on it, and the waves in it are kind of like a teal or an aqua. So people are thinking it could be like a Bears-Dolphins Super Bowl.
That would make Grandizer happy. I will put a lot of money that it will not be the Dolphins. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I could see it being the Bears, and which, if it is, I would love to see them play the Jaguars. That's the Super Bowl I wanted to see this season. I will put this out there now. I know we're not going to do our NFL predictions show for quite a while, but for Super Bowl 61, I'm going to say it right here, right now. At SoFi Stadium on Valentine's Day on ESPN, it will be Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears going against Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
You know what? I don't mind that pick since we're doing this, and it does kind of tie into our next topic, which is should Seattle be favored to repeat. I'm going to go out on a whim and say this. Representing the NFC for what may possibly be his final career game in the NFL in his home stadium, Matthew Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams.
I could see it, honestly, because the Rams and Seahawks, rightfully so, as of right now, from what I saw, they are the co-favorites to win Super Bowl 61 next season.
Yeah, and that we'll talk about that here in a minute. Them in Seattle are. But here's a fun one, Josh.
That's what I said.
Not only will the Rams be playing in their home stadium for the Super Bowl, but so will the AFC opponent, because we're going to have an all-LA Super Bowl in their home stadium because Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh, with Mike McDaniel as their offensive coordinator, are representing the AFC.
In order to win the game, you have to win the game.
So, I mean, should Seattle be favored to repeat? Listen, we kind of talked about this a little bit last week, where I think in the NFL, I just mentioned to you all of the teams in the AFC that I think could pose threats to the Patriots. In the NFC, you got my Philadelphia Eagles, who are still right out there as a Super Bowl-ish contender. You have Jaden Daniels making his return, and we think he's going to be fully healthy with the Commanders. I think Jackson Dart and the Giants are going to be a very improved team. I'm not saying Super Bowl team, but I do think they're going to be very improved. They could be like from a Jaguars S team where it's like they're maybe a year away. We know what the NFC West brings. And I do think, and not a lot of people are covering this a lot, but I think Mike LaFleur, depending on who they get at quarterback in Arizona, I think Arizona could be a very sneaky, frisky team. The NFC North had all four teams over 500 last year. That could theoretically happen again. And then I talked about last week how I think the NFC South overall has gotten better with not only coaching additions, but player additions. So I think we're at a point in the NFL right now where we know the Jets are going to be bad. We know the Browns are going to be bad. But that's like two teams right now, in my opinion, that I feel like we know are going to be bad. It'll end up being 4 or 5. The Cowboys could theoretically fall apart. We don't know. I'm very optimistic about the Raiders' future with Fernando Mendoza and Kubiak. I'm optimistic, as I mentioned, about Robert Saleh and Cam Ward in Tennessee. So I don't think there is. I mean, I do think Seattle's got a really good team. They got a really good roster. But my one worry about Seattle is going to be who are they going to get to replace Clint Kubiak? Because I think Sam Darnold's found his home. But take it from me, I've won a Super Bowl twice. I have been, since I've been alive and remembered, one other Super Bowl because I don't quite remember Super Bowl 39. But when you win a Super Bowl, there is this element of we can relax a little bit. We're the champs. Come get us. And I think that now people are going to pay attention to Seattle because let's face it, even throughout the playoff run, it sort of felt like Seattle was underestimated because nobody watched them the whole year because they were at the 405 corner TV game and not a lot of national TV games.
Let's see. Wade Green, Browns versus Rams, Super Bowl. I like that. Yeah, not happening. The Browns are nowhere near being a Super Bowl contender, let alone a playoff contender. No, you perfectly illustrated it. I do think there's one or two teams in the NFC I can kind of confidently say they're going to be bad. As much as I love Baker Mayfield, I do think the Buccaneers will be one of those teams, even though
my take is I think the Bucs could finish last in the NFC South next year.
As much as I love Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, Emeka Ibuka, Baker, they still have Todd Bowles as their head coach. I don't need to say any more than that. I agree with you about Dallas, although their offense is going to be awesome again because they franchise tagged George Pickens, but their defense.
Did they franchise tag Pickens? I didn't hear that.
I think I saw that, yes.
Okay.
But, I mean, is their defense going to be any better? I don't think so. So, yeah. And as much as I love Jaden Daniels, I don't trust the Commanders. I don't.
Okay. I mean, they did make the NFC Championship game 2 seasons ago. Again, I think the draft is going to tell us a lot. And this draft, we'll get into it more as the season hits, but it's a very offensive line, defensive line, edge draft. And there's outside of Mendoza, the quarterback class is pretty weak. And there's not a lot of players that you go, oh my God, I have to get this player. I have to move up. A lot of these players in the same similar group, very similar players. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of movement per se in this draft either.
Well, you say that, but even in the years we think that's the case, we usually do end up getting a lot of movement.
No, you're right. You're right.
So I do disagree with you about it, what you're saying, though I understand your point. But, you know, we're all going to say Seattle should be right back in the mix. But, again, I think you have more established teams in the NFC. A lot of the teams in the AFC, like Jacksonville, Houston, the Chargers, Denver to a certain degree, as much as I like them, Baltimore, you have more questions about those teams for a number of reasons, whereas you don't have the same level of questioning in the NFC. Maybe for a team like Chicago and Carolina, since they did what they did, relatively off schedule, or not off schedule, ahead of schedule, if you
Ahead of
will.
schedule, yeah.
Yes. So maybe Carolina and Chicago are the teams you're questioning, but you're not really questioning Seattle, the Rams, there are some questions with Philadelphia, rightfully so.
There are certainly, with the new scheme, I think it's either going to be a great fit or it's going to be a complete disaster. Like, I see this Eagles team being either conference championship or Super Bowl or bust, or the whole thing is blown up.
But do you get what I'm saying overall?
Yes.
So, like Green Bay, you don't have a ton of questions, though there are some. Detroit, you don't have a ton, but there are some. I feel like there are way more questions to be asked on the AFC side.
Josh, I'm going to play a quick little fun exercise for you real quick. So let's assume the Rams and Niners are playing week 1 in Australia and take those two teams off the board. Out of the Arizona Cardinals, Dallas Cowboys, New York Giants, Kansas City Chiefs, Los Angeles Chargers, the Patriots in a Super Bowl rematch, or the Chicago Bears, who would you like to see Seattle open the season against?
Well, my answer would be the LA Rams, but like you said, that's probably not going to be the case because of the Australia game. So I would actually go with the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I agree with you somewhat. I think the Bears would be a great choice. Dallas, I don't think you do because we saw them last year. Kansas City, I don't think you do because we don't know for sure yet if Mahomes is going to be back by week 1 or not. New England, I don't think you do because of what we just saw in the Super Bowl. So it really comes down to the Giants, which I think would be a real interesting choice. You get the New York market, you get John Harbaugh, his first game. The Chargers, which again, I think would be really cool, to get Harbaugh, McDaniel, Herbert on that stage opening night. But I think you really want to promote your youth. Great market in Chicago. The Bears were one of the best teams in the NFL last year. They had some of the best games in the entire NFL. It feels like to me almost a no-brainer to go with Chicago.
Yeah. Well, you both didn't even address why Jason Myers should have won Super Bowl MVP. Come on.
Well, there would have been an argument if his field goals would have been from like 50 yards, all 4 of them. A couple of them were chip shots.
Yeah.